sure that you wear a smile, right, and carry a passport. So these two things are very important. And don't be nervous at all. Be very much confident. Okay, because these questions are going to be very easy questions, right? Now let us talk about speaking test. There would be three parts of this test. First is part 1. In this test you have some familiar questions. Now what do you mean by familiar questions? You already know about these questions, right? So these questions which are familiar questions, these will be related to your family, these will be related to your friends, school, college, your office if you are working, maybe related to your job, your colleagues, neighbors, friends, and some questions related to fun, right? Amusement, right? For example, you go to park, so they may ask you something about park. Okay, if you go outside with your friends, they may ask you which parties you have with your friends. If you go to a restaurant or somewhere, how you spend your weekend. So these will be very simple questions in general. Okay, so there nothing to be worried here in part 1 particularly. Now you make sure in part 1 you have to answer every question at least in 3 lines, right? So you should try to answer all the questions not less than 3 lines. Give it a try, Aditya. Okay, there will be 4 questions in part 1, and you have to answer in at least 3 lines. It can be more than 3 lines as well. Is it clear? All right. Now once this is over, in speaking test, after part 1 there is part 2, which is known as cue card. What is a cue card? In cue card you have 4 to 5 questions. All right, related to any topic. Let us say if the question is related to meeting, then all the following questions in the cue card will be regarding meeting only. Fine. For example, they may ask you describe a meeting. Now the following questions will be where the meeting was held, who all were there at the meeting, what was the discussion about, when did the meeting start. These sort of questions you can have in your cue card. All right, now what do you want to keep in your mind at your cue card? That again you have to be very confident that you have to speak for 2 minutes, right? Not even a second less than 2 minutes. So they'll give you 1 minute for the preparation. You have this cue card physically in your hands, so you have enough time to practice, but that enough time is only 1 minute. And I'll tell you why it is enough, because in 1 minute you can do wonders. I'll tell you the tricks with which you can crack this. Okay, so initially you may find difficulty to speak for consecutive 2 minutes, but yes, it is very easy. After I tell you all the tricks and tips, it will be very easy for you to go for 2 minutes. Now what you need to keep in your mind everywhere in the test, not in particularly part 2, right? Whatever words they use, you need to paraphrase them. What's the meaning of paraphrase? You should change the words, or you use synonyms for that. Okay, so you should not repeatedly use the same words again and again. There are deductions for it. and there are different parameters, okay, on which they mark you down. It can be your repeating words, it can be your fluency, your pauses taken, or your maybe your pronunciation if it is not clear. So these sort of things you have to be aware of. Now coming to part 3. This is the toughest part of all the parts in speaking test Ielts, right? Here you will have 6 questions, right? But I'm writing 3 plus 3. What does that mean? So initial 3 questions, first 3 questions will be a follow-up from the cue card only. So let us say if cue card was related to meeting, then these 3 questions would certainly be from meeting only. Okay. And rest 3 questions. Now first 3 will be related to the cue card only. Fine, Aditya. Let us say if the cue card was related to library. So there are good chances that in part 3, the first 3 questions will be related to library only. So in every question you have library getting repeated. So in your answers you become aware that you do not repeat the word library again and again, okay? Now I'll tell you the tricks how you can skip it. And then we have 3 more questions after this. So these 3 questions which are after the follow-up questions, you have something new, okay? They may be related to some other topic. Fine, Aditya. Here what you have to be careful about, that your questions will be very lengthy. They may be lengthy, you may forget them. Is it clear? Lengthy means they may be there for 2 to 3 lines or more, and the questions will be twisted. They'll not ask you straight questions here like part 1. In part 1 they'll ask you simple questions. In part 3 the questions will be complex, right? And they will be very tricky. You'll not even understand the questions. The language will be tough. They have tough grammar and language for this. Now here you have to be very attentive in this part. One thing you have to take care of, that is you need to be very alert while listening to the questions. So if you listen properly, then only you will answer exactly. So here you have to answer minimum 4 lines. All the questions you can answer in minimum 4 lines. So this is roughly an idea which will help you understand your speaking module.